There is a quiet kind of fear that lives inside people. Not the loud, shaking kind, but the gentle tremor beneath the ribs, the one that whispers, if they saw everything inside you, would they stay? Most people don't run from the world. They hide from being understood. Because being understood means being seen, and being seen means revealing the pieces of yourself that you haven't learned to name yet. The confusion, the contradictions, the habits you can't explain, the wounds you don't remember receiving. And so, people learn to keep a distance, not out of pride but protection. Because somewhere deep inside, they fear that the parts they cannot explain are the same parts someone else might not accept. There is a moment in every person's life when they begin to realize that their inner world is not as simple as they once believed. It often starts quietly, not with a dramatic event, but with a small pause when someone asks a question that lands too close to your truth. A question like, "Are you okay?" Or, "What's wrong lately?" Or, "What's going on inside your mind?" And suddenly you feel yourself tighten. Not because you want to hide, but because you genuinely don't know how to answer. There are places within you that are not shaped yet. Feelings that don't have names. Emotions that arrive in fragments, like pieces of a puzzle you've never seen completed. And so you stay quiet. You smile softly. You say something small, something safe, something that keeps the other person close without letting them in too far. This is where the fear begins. Not in the presence of others, but in the confusion of your own inner landscape. Because how can you let someone see you when you can barely understand yourself? For some people, this fear is faint, a soft boundary around their heart. For others, it is a constant companion, a shadow that walks beside them whenever intimacy starts to deepen. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It simply reminds you in subtle, familiar ways to keep certain doors closed. And over time, you learn to move through life as if you're carrying delicate parts of yourself in both hands. You speak carefully. You reveal slowly. You measure your words because you don't want to expose the pieces of you that still feel unfinished. This isn't dishonesty. It's self-preservation. It's the instinct to stay understandable so you can stay accepted. Most people don't realize how much of their emotional life is spent in this protective position. They think they're being private, or reserved, or independent. But the truth is simpler and much more human. They fear that the parts they cannot explain will make them difficult to love. And so, they hide the confusion. They silence the contradictions. They tuck away the emotions that feel too complex, too heavy, or too raw to share. Even when someone tries to get close, a friend, a partner, a parent, someone who genuinely wants to understand, there is a pause, a hesitation, a soft internal flinch. Because letting someone see you requires clarity, and clarity is something many people are still searching for. This fear often grows in small, unnoticed ways. A moment in childhood when you were asked to explain your sadness and couldn't find the words. A time when your frustration was misunderstood and you were labeled dramatic or difficult. A day when you tried to speak but were met with impatience or confusion or silence. These experiences plant seeds, tiny invisible seeds, that slowly grow into the belief that your inner world must be handled alone. Not because others don't care, but because you don't know how to translate it. And with every year that passes, the inner world becomes richer, deeper, more layered. But also more private. Not by choice but by habit. What makes this fear so powerful is that it exists in the tension between longing and uncertainty. You want someone to understand you. You want someone to see the depth behind your quiet moments, the meaning behind your moods, the truth beneath the surface. But you also fear what might happen if they look too closely. What if they misunderstand? What if they walk away? What if they see something strange or fragile or unfinished inside you? Most people aren't afraid of being known. They're afraid of being misknown. And so they live carefully, revealing themselves in gentle doses, never too much at once, never more than they can explain. But somewhere beneath all this caution is a longing to be seen, to be understood even in the places where your own understanding falters. A longing for someone who doesn't need you to translate everything before they care. Someone who can sit with your confusion without trying to solve it. Someone who can hold your contradictions without asking you to choose one. Someone who doesn't turn away when the part of you that feels unfinished slowly comes to the surface. In this quiet longing lies the heart of the fear, and the beginning of the story. Fear rarely arrives fully formed. It grows, slowly, quietly, often long before a person knows it exists. The fear of letting someone see the parts you don't understand is not born in adulthood. It doesn't begin with romance or friendship or a single painful moment. It begins in the small spaces of early life, in the tone of a home, in the emotional climate of a childhood, in the way people responded to your feelings before you even had words for them. People learn themselves through the mirrors around them. And when the mirrors are unclear, inconsistent, or unkind, a child starts to hide the pieces that don't seem to fit. Sometimes the home was quiet, not peaceful but restrained, where emotions weren't spoken out loud, and curiosity was met with hesitation, where questions felt heavy, and the safest choice was silence. In such environments, children learn to observe more than they express. They become experts at reading the room before they ever learn to read themselves. They learn that calmness is approval, that stillness is safety, that being no trouble is the closest thing to love. So they soften their voice. They tone down their feelings. They make themselves small in ways no one notices at the time. And this, unknowingly, becomes the earliest layer of the fear. For some, the home was louder. Not in sound, but in unpredictability. Where affection arrived warmly one day and disappeared the next. Where someone's mood decided the atmosphere. Where the child learned that honesty could suddenly turn the room cold. So they held back. They edited themselves. They shared only the parts they were sure would not be misunderstood. This creates a different kind of fear, the fear of causing emotional waves they cannot control. Not because their thoughts are wrong, but because their truth once felt too heavy for the people around them. For others, the fear emerged through subtle comments. The kind made casually with no intention to harm but felt deeply all the same. Why are you so sensitive? You're overthinking again. That doesn't make sense. You're being emotional for no reason. Just say what you mean. A child doesn't yet know how to separate themselves from these reactions. So they assume the confusion is theirs. That their feelings are too much. That their inner world is somehow wrong or complicated or inconvenient. They begin to believe that clarity is a requirement for connection. If they can't explain themselves perfectly, they shouldn't reveal themselves at all. By the time someone grows older, these early messages have settled deep into their emotional foundation. Without realizing it, they carry the belief that relationships require constant self-monitoring, measuring every expression, translating every emotion into something neat, something understandable, something easy to accept. Not because they want to hide, but because they learned to fear the moments when they couldn't explain themselves well enough to be understood. This fear becomes a quiet reflex, a tightening in the throat when someone asks a deeper question, a hesitation before sharing thoughts that feel too layered or uncertain, a soft pullback when someone tries to get close. And it feels natural because it has been practiced for years. Psychologists often speak of emotion socialization, the way people learn which feelings are welcomed and which ones should be tucked away. But for many, the lessons weren't spoken at all. They were felt, through tone, through silence, through the slow shaping of what was safe to reveal. This is how people become adults who carry unnamed emotions like folded letters in their pockets. Letters they've never opened but refuse to throw away. Not because the contents are dangerous, but because no one ever taught them how to read what was written inside. By the time someone reaches adulthood, the fear has grown into something gentler but no less powerful. It shows up in the way they deflect praise, in how they change the subject when a conversation gets personal, in the slight shift of the eyes when someone looks at them too long, too tenderly. They want to be known, but only the parts they can fully understand. Because somewhere deep inside they believe that the unfinished parts, the confusing parts, the parts they still struggle to interpret, are risks. Risks of rejection. Risks of misunderstanding. Risks of losing the very connection they crave. And so the fear remains. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. A soft guard around the heart. This is where the fear was born. In early rooms, early voices, early silences. And without realizing it, people carry those early lessons into every relationship they try to build later. Not because they are fragile, but because they were shaped quietly by the emotional climates they once grew inside. There is a reason the fear of being seen feels so instinctive, as if the body remembers something even when the mind cannot explain it. Human beings are wired for connection, yet equally wired for protection. Two biological impulses constantly negotiating for control. And the moment someone tries to understand you deeply, these impulses collide. The body leans forward, longing to be known, while the mind subtly pulls back, protecting the places that feel unclear. To understand this contradiction, you have to look inward, at the psychology beneath the fear. One of the most powerful forces shaping this fear is attachment. Not the romantic kind, but the early blueprint that forms in childhood and quietly influences every relationship after. If someone grew up in stable emotional soil, where their inner world was welcomed, reflected, and met with curiosity, their nervous system learned that vulnerability is a safe doorway. But if childhood was uncertain, inconsistent, or emotionally unpredictable, the nervous system learned something else: being seen can be dangerous. Not physically but emotionally. Because emotional exposure once came with confusion, misinterpretation, or even rejection. And the brain remembers. Neuroscientists often talk about how the brain creates patterns, pathways etched by experience like small trails in a forest. When someone shares a feeling and is met with warmth, the brain forms a pathway named, connection is safe. But when someone shares a feeling and is met with criticism, silence, or confusion, the brain forms a different pathway, hide the complicated parts. These pathways become automatic. You don't choose them. You don't even think about them. They simply activate whenever the possibility of emotional closeness appears. This is why a simple question like, "Can you tell me what you're feeling?" can suddenly feel overwhelming. It's not the question that frightens you. It's the pathways that once formed in the quieter years of your life. Another driving force behind this fear is shame. Not the dramatic, visible kind, but the subtle, internal kind that forms when a person believes that parts of themselves are wrong, too much, or not understandable enough. Shame is not loud. It doesn't shout. It whispers, gently, consistently. It tells you to stay within the boundaries of what you can explain, what you can justify, what you can make clear to others. Because shame fears exposure, not of flaws but of confusion. People often think shame is about guilt. But guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, something about me is wrong. And when someone asks to understand your inner world, shame anticipates exposure. It prepares for judgment. It braces for misunderstanding. Even when the person in front of you means only kindness. There is also a biological element to vulnerability. When a person reveals something raw, something uncertain, the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, becomes alert. To the brain, emotional visibility can feel like stepping into a spotlight. Too bright. Too revealing. Too unfamiliar. It's not danger the brain fears, but unpredictability. Because the brain prefers clarity, predictability, concrete definitions. And the parts of yourself you don't understand offer none of that. They are blurry. They are shifting. They resist simple explanations. So the brain hesitates. It pulls back. It protects. Not because you're incapable of connection, but because the brain equates uncertainty with risk. Psychologists call this emotional masking. It's the instinct to show only the parts of yourself that feel safe to reveal. People mask not to deceive but to survive. They share the version of themselves that is digestible, clear, easy to comprehend. Because being misunderstood can feel far more painful than not being seen at all. Emotional masking becomes a habit, a soft, invisible shield people carry into every conversation where the possibility of closeness exists. Yet beneath all this science, beneath the neural pathways, the attachment patterns, the shame responses, there is something deeply human and deeply tender. People want to be known. Not performatively, not selectively, but truthfully. They want someone to see the incomplete parts, the blurry parts, the tangled places inside where emotions live without labels. They just fear the moment when those parts come into the light. Because what if someone sees something even you don't understand and misunderstands it? What if your uncertainty is misread as indifference? What if your confusion is misinterpreted as distance? What if your inner complexity makes someone pull away? These questions linger in the mind long before words ever reach the mouth. This fear is not irrational. It is learned, structured, biological, emotional, human. And even when someone stands in front of you with genuine interest, with patience, with understanding, the fear still rises. Not because you don't trust them, but because you don't yet trust that the parts of you without explanations are still worthy of being seen. There comes a moment in every meaningful connection when distance can no longer protect you. Someone sits a little closer. Someone listens a little deeper. Someone notices the pauses between your sentences and the places where your voice softens. Someone senses the thoughts you're not saying as clearly as the ones you do. And suddenly the carefully built distance begins to thin. It doesn't break, not yet, but it becomes delicate, translucent, almost see-through. This is the moment when fear and longing come face to face inside you. A quiet tug-of-war between wanting to stay hidden and wanting finally to be understood. When someone gets close, the first instinct is often to retreat. Not dramatically but subtly. You change the subject. You offer a smaller answer than the truth. You smile instead of explaining. You let the conversation drift toward something lighter, safer, simpler. It is not rejection. It is reflex. Because closeness feels like a hand reaching toward a door inside you that you're not sure is ready to be opened. And you worry, not about the person but about what they might see once the door moves even slightly. Inside most people there are rooms they've never invited anyone into. Rooms filled with old memories that were never fully processed. Rooms with emotions they only feel in private. Rooms where confusion still lives without resolution. Rooms where some parts of themselves are still scattered, still forming, still learning how to be understood. These rooms don't make someone broken. They make someone human. But when another person begins to approach them, the instinct to guard the doorway grows strong. Because letting someone inside means giving them access to the places that have never been tidy. The places without explanations. The places without certainty. And people fear exposing what they have not yet organized. Yet, time has a way of testing these protective walls. The more someone shows up, gently, consistently, without demanding clarity, the more the fear begins to shift. Not disappear but soften. Because the greatest contradiction of the human heart is this. People fear being seen yet ache for someone to look closely enough to recognize the parts they've hidden. Closeness, real closeness, does not come from perfect communication or emotional confidence. It comes from the slow realization that someone is willing to meet you in the dimmer, quieter corners of your inner world. Not to fix, not to solve, not to interpret, but simply to witness. Still, the inner conflict continues. There will be moments when you inch forward, ready to share something deeper, and then suddenly pull back. Moments when someone's kindness feels overwhelming, as if you're being asked to reveal pages of your story you haven't finished writing. Moments when you want to speak but the words feel fragile, too raw, too complicated. This tension is not failure. It is the natural rhythm of a heart learning to trust again. Opening, closing. Leaning in, stepping back. Revealing, retreating. It is the emotional breathing pattern of someone who has spent years holding themselves tightly. Then one day, quietly, often without noticing, something shifts. It happens in a small moment, not a dramatic one. Perhaps you say something you never said out loud before. A worry. A memory. A confusion you never learned to name. A part of yourself you usually keep behind your ribs. And the person sitting with you doesn't flinch. Doesn't misinterpret. Doesn't look away. They understand even when you struggle to. They stay, even when your sentence trails off before reaching clarity. They don't ask you to explain what you cannot explain yet. They simply remain present, holding space for the version of you that is still unfolding. And something inside you relaxes in a way you didn't realize was possible. A tiny, delicate trust begins to form. Not trust in them, that came earlier, but trust in yourself. Trust that the parts of you that are still forming are not dangers. Not liabilities. Not things to be hidden until fully understood. But parts worthy of being witnessed even in their unfinished shape. This is the turning point. The quiet realization that being seen does not require being complete. That someone can meet you where you are, in the uncertainty, in the half-formed emotions, in the parts of yourself you still struggle to interpret, and still choose to stay. Closeness stops feeling like exposure and becomes something else entirely. Discovery. Not of your weaknesses but of your depth. Not of your confusion but of your humanity. Not of the parts you don't understand but of the courage it takes to let someone see them anyway. And in that realization, a new kind of silence appears. Not the protective silence of fear, but the gentle silence of finally allowing someone to stand close enough to understand you even where your own understanding is still growing.